contest show in the land. The Las Vegas Football Contest Show focuses on Circa Sports Million, Circa Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Carlos Alcaraz has won the last two Grand Slam titles at the French Open on the clay and at Wimbledon earlier this summer. He enters as the favorite.
You have a bunch of depth there. Francis Tiafoe, Ben Shelton. They will likely play in round three. The winner would play Djokovic, most likely, which would be an incredible match. I like Ben Shelton as a sleeper. If Djokovic is hurt, you never know. I think Shelton's actually the guy that gets hot. The conditions favor him.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
When you're really, really amazing like this, people kind of take it for granted. Same with Ohtani, right? People will sort of see, oh, Ohtani did this, Ohtani did that, and it sort of, becomes
But they're trying to make their way out of it, at least with the National Hockey League and the National Basketball Association in some way. So on Tuesday, they move forward with this, getting out of bankruptcy with a Chapter 11 reorganization. A representative for Diamond Sports, they run the regional sports network under the name Bally, says the company hopes to file a reorganization plan that will allow confirmation of hearings at some point within the first half of November. Now, Bally did get out of their deals with the Mavericks and the Pelicans because basically they can't afford to pay the rights fees for there. But the saga goes on because Major League Baseball is unhappy with this new agreement and are basically stating that there will be uncertainty as to when opening day begins on April the 1st of next year. So they're not happy. They want basically either the money or out of this deal. And a bankruptcy court says that they're going to take Major League Baseball's claims very seriously and going to meet again in October to see if there's more validity to it. So do we have an answer on Diamond? No, we do not. But it does appear that at least the national basketball games that you watch on your local affiliate on your RSN and your hockey games that you watch on your local affiliate on RSN, it looks like those are going to be broadcast in different markets across the country. All right, now let's get to the American Gaming Association and some news there. Seems like they're pretty unhappy with this report that was released by the University of Bristol in England, basically finding that 75% of the non-sponsored social media content that's put out by the four major sports books, they're saying that BetMGM, DraftKings, ESPN, Bet, and FanDuel don't comply with the AGA's responsible gaming code. The AGA says, no, we are doing that, and this is a irresponsible misinterpretation of the code. So needless to say, responsible gaming still enforced here in the United States, but there are countries that are saying that we're not doing a good job of it. We will see. New AP Top 25 poll. One of the favorites to get into the college football playoff was from the ACC. FSU, no longer the case. FSU now out of the top 25 poll. Georgia's still the number one team in the country. As you see, Texas is there at number 3. Guess who they play this week? They play Michigan. So one of those two teams is going to move up or down after the week. Friday night is the opening night of the NFL in Brazil. Devin White, their linebacker on the Philadelphia Eagles, he's not going to play in this game. He has been deemed out by the Eagles with their injury report that came out this morning, so he will not play on Friday night. Cam Hayward, defensive lineman for the Pittsburgh Steelers, signs a contract extension, 3 years, $45 million. It is extension season. The Jets have extended Michael Carter II. He got a 3-year, $30.75 million contract with the New York Jets. Bill Belichick is making his way through the media. He signs on with another media company to open the season. He is now working with the 33rd team as strategic advisor. In addition, he's with the CW, also ESPN and Underdog as well. The 49ers are set to start their season. Trent Williams, although they're putting the ink on that contract in finality, looks like he's going to be able to play on Monday night. Brandon Ayuk also in tow. Christian McCaffrey practiced this week as well. And naturally speaking, Brandon Ayuk and Trent Williams talked about their contracts getting done. Very excited to be back with the team.
I think, I'm not going to lie, I made it a little bit more difficult than it needed to at the end. But yeah, it was. I mean, it was like that from. I'm not gonna say the whole entire time, but for about the past month, I think we were pretty good.
We had conversations. I didn't think that it would get this drawn out, but it's a tough business, and this was a very intricate contract. I wouldn't call it a dispute, but restructure. So it took time to get to where both sides feel like it's a win-win. And so we had discussions in minicamp and kind of knew that it could draw out a little bit just because there was other people on the table that obviously was a lot of pressing needs. So I didn't think it'd go this long, but it is what it is. We actually retained a really good rapport during the whole time I was away.
Williams did say that once Ricky Pearsall was shot, their wide receiver, he wanted to be with him, and that's one of the reasons why he rejoined the 49ers. All right, let's get to some college football news here and some notes here. Victoria Bowles, she survived that fatal car wreck that killed the University of Georgia football player back in January of 2023. She settled her claims against the school, but she's keeping her lawsuit against Philadelphia Eagles defensive lineman Jalen Carter alive for the time being. Jaden Ott, probable going into the weekend for Cal. They play at Auburn. Auburn 13-point favorites. Iowa State's Caleb Bacon is out following surgery, and he is going to miss some time, and there's a chance he could return later in the season. We'll take a quick time out here on the show, and we'll be joined by Michael DeCourcy of Sporting News next.
The Bostonian versus the book.
Would it make you feel better as a bettor or as a sports fan if they said after the game we were trying to cover the spread?
Oh, God. To say it out loud? Oh, my God, no.
So what,
no to say it out loud? Oh, my God. You can't say that out loud. No, you can't do that.
Okay, so what is the big deal either way?
Oh, play the game the right way.
The Bostonian versus the book.
I feel like the first person to take a kicker in fantasy football is somebody that feels like, man, I had a really bad draft. Let me make sure I get the best kicker. That's the way I've always looked at it that way. Like, oh, I did so bad, so let me take Justin Tucker.
The key for me is, though, I make marks. Okay, this guy, I'll highlight him because I don't want 3 or 4 of these guys. I draft 3 or 4 of these guys and they all get hurt. I have no one to blame but me.
Fantasy sports today, only on SportsGrid.
When you're really, really amazing like this, people kind of take it for granted. Same with Ohtani, right? People will sort of see, oh, Ohtani did this, Ohtani did that, and it sort of, becomes normalized a little bit. But to put in context, Aaron Judge joins the 1,000 hit club, reaches, gets it done. So earlier this month, he was the fastest player to reach 300 home runs ever.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
Let's go. Welcome to the Live Golf Team Championship. The golf has been mesmerizing. They are the Live Golf Team champions.
Team golf is back.
Oh, yes! Are you ready?
Let's go!
That's what champions do.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. First week of the NFL season begins tomorrow. Michael DeCourcy is with us from Sporting News. He's all ready to go. He's looked at the schedule. He's looked at the props. He's looked at the players. Well, probably a little bit. I mean, it's still early. I mean, it feels like it's taken forever to get here, but in the end, before you make a bet or before you look at a prop, it kind of feels like sometimes it comes down to the wire. And so here we are. Mike, thanks for coming on NewsWire.
You know, Craig, it's difficult at this time for someone who follows the Pittsburgh Steelers closely to look at what we've seen through the exhibition season and put a lot of stock into anything that's happened. After a year ago, Kenny Pickett goes out and puts out a literally perfect passer rating for his time in the exhibition season, and then comes out and he's Kenny Pickett for real. Nothing changed as a quarterback through the early part of last season before he got hurt. It's hard to get really vamped up about what we saw over the course of the last several weeks. Maybe what happened while all that was going on mattered, but what we saw, I think, can be deceiving.
And I think that's a good point because the preseason is usually a fool for people and they believe things that they've seen and it usually doesn't work. But in week one, they basically the way the odds have been set to me, Mike, is that there's no belief in the Patriots, but anything can happen in any other game. That's kind of the way that I'm looking at the point spreads here because they're all very tight. On the division side, we have Houston taking on Indianapolis, Carolina, New Orleans, and the Raiders and Chargers. Those are some of the key division matchups. Let's start there. The Houston Texans, who are one of the favorites to take that next step. They took that big step last year. They're favorites to take that next step. There are some that feel that maybe they do it. Mike, there's some that feel they're a little bit overrated. And that certainly would be the indication in terms of the way FanDuel has set their line here, because it's tight. I mean, Texans are just 2.5-point favorites at the Colts. The Colts last year played a lot of close games, more or less hung around in a lot of the games that they played in. Anthony Richardson played well when the regular season began last year. He did not play well in the preseason this year. Total 49 and a half. What do you make of this one?
Yeah, Anthony Richardson, I think, is everything in this game, because what is he ready to do? He showed some flashes before he got hurt, and then the Colts had to muddle through with a variety of other quarterbacks last year, and they did really well in his absence. The question is, does he make them better? He certainly makes them different, but does he make them better? There are other places where this line has been really mobile. I saw one that lifted it from 1.5 to open all the way to 3.5 now, which says a lot about what people think about where the Colts were in the preseason. They will be playing at home, and it's not the toughest building in which to play as an opponent. Their fans are the friendliest in all of NFL football, to be honest with you, because I've been to games there, and they support their team, but they are not tough on the opposition. So I think that the Texans can go into Lucas Oil Stadium and feel pretty comfortable about having a chance to cover that number.
Yeah, and certainly Jonathan Taylor, that's the big difference for the Colts back here at the beginning of the season. The two quarterbacks have their prop set over on FanDuel as far as passing yards are concerned. Richardson is 223.5. Stroud is 272.5. And certainly Houston's going to look different on the ground this year with Joe Mixon. But Stroud was so good down the stretch and at the end of last season. I believe that's why his passing total is about 50 higher than Stroud. Do you like either one of these?
I kind of like the under a little bit on Richardson. I'm not sure he's ready to throw for that many yards. The only scenario in which I see him getting to there would be if the Texans were to blow out the Colts and then they just started chucking it. But I don't think that's going to be the case. An interesting stat that I think that people should be aware of that I found. The Colts are 0-9-1 in opening week over the last decade. Does that mean they're due, or that they're really bad coming out of the blocks?
Yeah, well, we'll find out soon. We'll also find out a lot more about Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers. Speaking of quarterbacks, if you ask a lot of the pro betting experts, the Carolina Panthers are one of the favorite bets for a lot of people going into week one at the New Orleans Saints, catching 4.5 points. And I suppose the reason why here is when you look at the Saints, are the Saints that much better than the Panthers? Should they be 4.5-point favorites going into this game?
I think that's exactly it. The fact that the Saints were only able to go 9-8, given the stats that Drew Carr was able to put together last year, I thought that said a lot about the rest of the outfit and how it's just okay. And to expect them to come out and really clock a divisional opponent in the first week. The only question for me is I've never been a big Bryce Young guy, and certainly last year didn't do anything to dissuade me from that position. And so that I would be a little bit skeptical, honestly, about believing in the Panthers just based on that, at least early. New coach, a quarterback, I'm not totally convinced. I would say that more than anything, I probably would want to avoid this game. But the one thing that you can say for the Saints is they have been really good in opening games, won their past 5. So that might reinforce the idea that number's a little big.
Okay. And then finally, a game between the Raiders and Chargers, and the annual tradition of the Chargers being favorites in games they don't cover. I wonder if that's the case here with all the Raiders fans. They're going to show up in LA. We know that, to see that game there. But basically, the odds makers generally lay 2.5 with the home team. So it tells you that the Chargers and Raiders, the odds makers think, are about even going into the season.
Well, that's really surprising when you think about it. With the quarterback situation, the Chargers, he's getting commercials now. Everybody's believed in him forever. And here are the Raiders bringing in Gardner Minshew, 15-22 record as a starting quarterback, the guy you love to have if your guy goes down. But you're opening with him, and you're going on the road, and people think that you're not going to be a victim. I have to believe the Chargers get it done here.
I never believe that the Chargers are going to get it done anytime. Anytime. I never have that belief going into any game. Mike, thanks for coming on NewsWire. Really appreciate it. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, Craig.
All right, Michael DeCourcy of Sporting News. We'll take a quick time out here on NewsWire. When we come back next, Dabo Swinney fired up about getting blown out against the Georgia Bulldogs. We'll hear for more on that. Also, Joe Lisi previews the big game in college football this week between Texas and Michigan. We'll be back with the SportsGrid Sound Off next.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Would it make you feel better as a bettor or as a sports fan if they said after the game we were trying to cover the spread?
Oh, God. To say it out loud? Oh, my God, no.
So what,
to say it out loud? Oh, my God. You can't say that out loud. No, you can't even. You can't do that.
Okay, so what is the big deal either way?
Oh, play the game the right way.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
I feel like the first person to take a kicker in fantasy football is somebody that feels like, man, I had a really bad draft. Let me make sure I get the best kicker. The way I've always looked at it that way. Like, oh, I did so bad, so let me take Justin Tucker.
The key for me is, though, I make marks. Okay, this guy, I'll highlight him because I don't want 3 or 4 of these guys. I draft 3 or 4 of these guys and they all get hurt. I have no one to blame but me.
Fantasy sports today, only on SportsGrid.
When you're really, really amazing like this, people kind of take it for granted. Same with Ohtani, right? People will sort of see, oh, Ohtani did this, Ohtani did that, and it sort of, becomes normalized a little bit. But to put in context, Aaron Judge joins the 1,000 hit club, reaches, gets it done. So earlier this month, he was the fastest player to reach 300 home runs ever.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
Let's go. Welcome to the Live Golf Team Championship. The golf has been mesmerizing. They are the Live Golf Team champions.
Team golf is back.
Oh, yes! Are you ready?
Let's go!
That's what champions do.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Overreaction time is already here in both college and pro football. Teams have lost 1 game, they're done. Teams have won 1 game, they're winning the whole thing. We're going to touch on that here a little bit. We'll also preview the big game coming up on Saturday between Texas and Michigan. It's time now for the SportsGrid Sound Off. Well, Clemson fans are certainly overreacting. I mean, they just played the number 1 team in the country in the University of Georgia. I mean, the Bulldogs looked amazing. Clemson, I mean, look, they did look horrible, but that can happen when you play the number 1 team in the land. Meanwhile, the Tigers, perennially a contender to win it all. Not really last year. Doesn't look like it this year as well. Seems to be getting under the skin of their head coach, Dabo Swinney, who met with the media, and seems like he has his hands full with them too.
Y'all gonna write crap. Y'all gonna write terrible stuff. And when we do great, y'all gonna write great stuff. That's okay. I mean, everybody's got a job to do. It's okay. That's okay. I don't take it personal. I don't read it or listen to it. That doesn't affect me. I love my job. I love what I do. I love all of it. And y'all can't change that. Nothing you can write, nothing you can say can change that. I love what I do. I love these kids. I love my purpose in life. And my life is on a foundation that doesn't change. It just doesn't. And, so hopefully that's something that our kids will learn as they go through, moments like this, that they can learn how to, handle adversity, learn how to handle success, because you're gonna have both in life, and that's a great part of what football teaches.
I don't think anybody would argue that Dabo Swinney is going to go down as the best Clemson football coach of all time. I also don't think anybody would argue for somebody who says that the media and nothing affects him, that he just showed there that, yes, it does affect him, my opinion. All right, coming up this weekend, Texas takes on Michigan. The winner of this really moves into a great spot for the college football playoff, and we basically are just here in September. Our very own Joe Lisi has a preview.
Huge SEC Big Ten battle taking place in the Big House. Top-ranked Texas takes on the defending champ Michigan Wolverines. Texas and Quinn Ewers in the offseason opened as a 3.5-point road favorite after their Week 1 dominating win over Colorado State, 52-0. The line has now ballooned up to 7.5 in favor of the Longhorns. Ewers stepped up in Week 1 with a dominating first-half performance, threw for 268 yards against Colorado State. Isaiah Bond, the Alabama transfer, also added 61 yards in regards to that matchup. Could be a factor this coming weekend. Michigan won a dominating blue-collar effort over Mikey Keene in Fresno State. Quarterback struggled in regards to Warren and Alex Orji, and the rushing attack led by Donovan Edwards in the first half struggled. They did rush for over 100 yards. That could be the difference. Michigan's riding a 23 home game winning streak, and they're 12-0 every time they pound the rock for over 200 the past couple of seasons. Michigan covers this number. Now, Craig, back to you.
All right, thanks, Joe. And again, bigger number than what it was just a few weeks ago. Is that an impressive win for Texas, beating Colorado State by a 50 spot this past weekend? I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll be the judge. We haven't seen Michigan play yet in a big way, and this will be a first test for them, I think, against a good team. All right, meanwhile, the big test coming up for the Kansas City Chiefs. Week 1 is here. Game 1 is tomorrow night. There's some speculation maybe that Travis Kelce, getting up there in age a little bit, maybe takes a little bit of a step back in terms of playing time so he can continue to play his career out over the next, let's say, 2-3 years. But Kelce, meanwhile, says he feels as good as he ever has, and there's no taking the foot off the pedal.
I'm excited, man. I'm excited. Get to play another year of football, fresh slate. You know, get to kind of prove to ourselves and Chiefs Kingdom that we're one of the top dogs. We can play at a high level, man. It's exciting.
Long season, how do you feel?
Ready to rock. I've never been more excited, to be honest. I'm just we got a great team, a great group of guys that are putting all their heart into every single day, and that's fun to be a part of.
You talked about feeling physically great. I'm curious if the coaches have talked to you for Week 1 at least in terms of managing your snap count.
No, and I probably wouldn't listen to them if they
did. No chance Kelce's out of any game late that's important in the NFL. Don't see that happen. All right, coming up next, we've got Pat Evans from Legal Sports Report. Is there positive news on the hope for a potential sports betting bill in Missouri? We'll find out that next. And also, for those of you before sports betting became legal who used to bet illegally offshore, maybe one of those websites could be coming to an end. Talk about that next.
The Bostonian versus the book.
Would it make you feel better as a bettor or as a sports fan if they said after the game we were trying to cover the spread?
Oh, God. To say it out loud? Oh, my God, no.
So what,
to say it out loud? Oh, my God. You can't say that out loud. No, you can't do that.
Okay, so what is the big deal either way?
Oh, play the game the right way.
The Bostonian versus the book.
I feel like the first person to take a kicker in fantasy football is somebody that feels like, man, I had a really bad draft. Let me make sure I get the best kicker. The way I've always looked at it that way. Like, oh, I did so bad, so let me take Justin Tucker.
The key for me is, though, I make marks. Okay, this guy, I'll highlight him because I don't want 3 or 4 of these guys. I draft 3 or 4 of these guys and they all get hurt. I have no one to blame but me.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
When you're really, really amazing like this, people kind of take it for granted. Same with Ohtani, right? People will sort of see, oh, Ohtani did this, Ohtani did that, and it sort of, becomes normalized a little bit. But to put in context, Aaron Judge joins the 1,000 hit club, gets it done. So earlier this month, he was the fastest player to reach 300 home runs ever.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
Let's go. Welcome to the Live Golf Team Championship. The golf has been mesmerizing. They are the Live Golf Team Champions.
Team golf is back.
Oh, yes!
Are you ready?
Let's go! That's what champions do.
Welcome back to NewsWire. Time for us to head over to the library in Michigan to join our friend Pat Evans from Legal Sports Report. He's back with us for another round of sports betting talk, legalization talk, and got some news on an offshore sports book as well. Pat, great to catch up with you here again, and great to see you. Thanks for coming back on the show.
Great as always to be back. It's never a dull time with you, Craig.
No, it isn't. It is never a dull time. It looks like more books, by the way. Are you adding books to that librry, Pat? It
Yes,
feels like it's thicker back there.
You'll notice right over here. There's even more. There, it's my wife and I like to read. Some might say it's a problem, but I don't because I write for a living. So
I understand. Understatement of the year. You like to read. Understatement of the year looking there. But let's not indict him for that. I mean, it's great to read. I agree with that sentiment. All right, Pat. Well, I read your column over at Legal Sports Report last week. What is going on here in Missouri? I mean, this is like it feels like we get closer, we get further away from them legalizing sports betting here. But and we know that there are some people that do not want sports betting there. But it does feel like the push continues. But there is a lawsuit that is currently in the way of some of this. Tell us more about it. I don't want to ruin the story before.
Yeah, of course. To set the tone of it, we have to remember that the last 3 years there's been legislative pushes to get sports betting over the, finish line and legalized in Missouri, and it just hasn't happened, largely because of one senator, Denny Hoskins, who's wanted to tie video lottery terminals to the legislation, and nobody else wanted to do that. So that it fell short. Well, Bill DeWitt III from the St. Louis Cardinals was like, we got to do it a different way. He started with all the other professional sports teams in the state a giant ballot petition to get it on the ballot less than 2 months away. Well, here we are 2 months away again. And as I just said, and we've got a lawsuit challenging the certification process of that ballot petition. And it's kind of a mystery of who's behind this. We know there's two Democratic consultants who are the plaintiffs in this case, but they're backed and led by a Republican attorney. He's the chair of the Republican Lawyers Association, National Lawyers Association. So that's a strange bedfellows. He's done a lot with the Missouri Gaming Association, which represents the casinos in the state, which has been kind of quiet in terms of this whole ballot petition and now this lawsuit. It has not issued a statement around either of them. And so this is just a kind of a big question of who's actually behind this, because there's some kind of interesting bedfellows here. The hearing is tomorrow, the first hearing at least. Maybe there could be more, or it could be settled tomorrow. We'll find out. And we'll go from there. I mean, there has been industry talk before the lawsuit. Multiple sources had told me that Caesars and Penn Entertainment weren't very happy with how the ballot language was set up, because rather than how it was in the legislation, where each casino gets a couple skins, now only the casino operator gets one skin. And that's interesting because Penn and Caesars both have 3 casinos in the state. And then you look at, there's 2 standalone licenses, which you have to assume would probably go to DraftKings and FanDuel. So you're taking away the tethering, and that's a whole thing. But there's no connection between them and the lawsuit, at least as of yet. It would be completely unfair to them to say they are at this point. So anyway, it's going to be a very interesting day tomorrow and potentially the next 2 months as we get to see who's going to vote or if Missourians will get to vote at all, because if they don't win it, then it'll go off the ballot.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's really the key, but it does feel like, at least, and on a follow-up to your story, as far as the polling is concerned, this is the strongest support that the polls have shown. We've seen previous polls from people in Missouri, more than 50% of people wanting sports betting there, but it seems like that number is climbing as we continue to talk about it.
Yeah, it's been fairly kind of 50-50 the whole time, but the latest poll is very strong in terms of that 50%. 50% fully support it, then another 21 are kind of undecided. And it was kind of an interesting go to the story at Legal Sports Report. We break it down a little bit more from the St. Louis University and YouGov poll. But, overwhelming support from men. Democrats support it quite a bit more than Republicans, but not too bad. I think Republicans were about 44%. Democrats were 58%. Urban areas, Kansas City, St. Louis, very much for it. But once you get out to the rural areas, and again, the data kind of showed that people who make more money and people who are more educated are for sports betting, which was kind of an interesting takeaway for me. But yeah, right now, the professor who was kind of behind it said, this looks like it's a no-brainer. It'll get passed in November. Again, that's dependent on this hearing tomorrow, potentially. But right, yeah, as you said, the numbers right now are really a good situation.
Yeah, stronger than they've been, is fair to say. And I think that it's also fair to say, as we get closer here, the more we talk about a state getting sports betting legalized as a possibility, it seems like the stronger chance there is, even if not now, but maybe for the future. All right, so let's close it out here with this story that I'll never understand. Still to this day, I don't get it. I don't understand it. You can try and explain it to me. There are offshore sports betting sites that have been around for decades. And even with the legalization of sports betting, they continue to operate illegally overseas, everywhere. And so there's a story that you guys have up over at Legal Sports Report. I'm trying to understand this one. Louisiana is not happy that a company called Bovada, who's been around as long as I can remember, are operating illegally in their state, as they are operating illegally in every state. So there is a cease and desist. What does this even mean? Like, okay, like they've got a cease and desist, but like none of these operators offshore ever abide by these. So what is different about this?
Well, see, that's kind of the interesting part, is to your point, for a while, it didn't seem was making any difference that they were sending these cease and desists or telling these companies to stop operating. But this is just kind of the latest state that I think is starting to make a change in how this is happening. Earlier this year, we saw Michigan, my state, Michigan up here, send a cease and desist to Bovada and a bunch of sweepstakes companies last year, a couple other, illegal operators, and they've shut down, including Bovada. Bovada now has shut down in, I think it's 11 U.S. markets, 10 states and D.C., from states, regulators sending a cease and desist saying you can't operate here anymore. And this kind of goes back, I think it was 2 years ago, the American Gaming Association sent a letter to Bovada, or to the Attorney General, saying, can you help us crack down on illegal sports betting or illegal gambling operators from offshore? That was followed up last year by Michigan regulators and I think 7 signee states to the Attorney General saying the same thing. We need help. Well, then Michigan started doing it. We've seen West Virginia do it. We've seen New Jersey do it. We're seeing Massachusetts do it. Louisiana, just the latest. Charles Hebert, the new Louisiana Gaming Control Board chairman, talked about it a little bit at his meeting last month and said, we've seen a lot of states do it. It's working. We want to make sure that our consumers are protected, that our market's protected, that we're a regulated, safe market that creates taxes and maintains consumer protections. And as of right now, we haven't seen Bovada pull out of Louisiana, but I wouldn't be fully surprised if they do, just be based on the recent activity. They just pulled out of Ohio last week or last month. So, yeah, really interesting. To your point, during the commercial break, you mentioned, or you said, this is something we're probably going to battle for the next 20 years. It might be forever. Forever. These operators continue to pop up. They find loopholes in different regulations to make it so they don't necessarily break any laws. Bovada fully is an offshore illegal market, but there's plenty of gray market, as we call them, when they're kind of fitting through the regulations. So yeah, this is something, to your point, and in the break, is something we're going to be dealing with for a long time. So this is not the last story. I'm sure we'll talk about CNDs.
Yeah. And by the way, Bovada, if I'm not mistaken, operates under Bodog outside of the United States, I think, and they could just change the V to an end, and now they're Bonata and still just operating. And I mean, honestly, like I don't know. Like, I get it, and I understand them trying to stop these companies, but you know, if they're operating offshore, I don't know how you do it. I'm not trying to advocate it. I'm just saying it's the reality. Anyway, all right, Pat. Great to catch up with you. Good stuff. We'll catch up with you again soon.
Thanks, Craig.
The Bostonian versus the book.
Would it make you feel better as a bettor or as a sports fan if
No.
they said after the game we were trying to cover the spread?
Oh God, to say it out loud. Oh my God, no.
So what?
No, to say it out loud. Oh my God, you can't say that out loud. No, you can't even. You can't do that.
Okay, so what is the big deal? Either way.
Oh, play the game the right way.
The Bostonian versus the book.
I feel like the first person to take a kicker in fantasy football is somebody that feels like, man, I had a really bad draft. Let me make sure I get the best kicker. That's the way I've always looked at it that way. Like, oh, I did so bad, so let me take Justin Tucker.
The key for me is, though, I make marks. Okay, this guy, I'll highlight him because I don't want 3 or 4 of these guys. I draft 3 or 4 of these guys and they all get hurt. I have no one to blame but me.
Fantasy sports today, only on SportsGrid.
When you're really, really amazing like this, people kind of take it for granted. Same with Ohtani, right? People will sort of see, oh, Ohtani did this, Ohtani did that, and it sort of, becomes normalized a little bit. But to put in context, Aaron Judge joins the 1,000 hit club, gets it done. So earlier this month, he was the fastest player to reach 300 home runs ever.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
Let's go. Welcome to the Live Golf Team Championship. The golf has been mesmerizing. They are the Live Golf Team champions.
Team golf is back.
Oh, yes! Are you ready?
Let's go!
That's what champions do.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. We got Kenny Ducey in the house. I'm sure it's been a very busy time handicapping the U.S. Open over the last, let's say, week or two. We've seen some massive upsets. Honestly, some players that I've never even heard of are headed toward a potential championship at the U.S. Open. I wonder if some big dogs are going to end up hitting at this thing. Kenny, how would you describe the play at the U.S. Open this year? Unpredictable would be the word that I would have.
Yeah, I think that's what you have to go with, especially in the men's draw. And coming into the tournament, there were a lot of question marks about, Novak Djokovic, his health. He did win the Olympic gold medal, but, Carlos Alcaraz rolled his ankle in practice before the U.S. Open. So there were question marks here. There was one about Jannik Sinner, who still remains with his hip injury that kept him out a little bit of time back in May. That's still bothering him. But, there are question marks every single Grand Slam tournament that we have, Craig. That's just how it goes. Every single time, Novak Djokovic plays, there's always some sort of injury, something that's bothering him. He manages to go to the semis or even win the tournament. So I think it really, truly has been unpredictable. And to see, both Alcaraz and Djokovic go out incredibly early has really opened things up and made this a very fun feel. I mean, I think that we've had guys like Francis Tiafoe, Daniil Medvedev, Taylor Fritz, even Jack Draper, who I love. We've had those guys have opportunities to make runs to semifinals at the U.S. Open before, but never really this year did it feel very attainable now that the 2 multi-time Grand Slam champions are out of the draw. So I think it's going to be incredibly fun to watch what happens today and going forward into the weekend.
Yeah, so let's talk about Taylor Fritz here for a minute, because this is one of the big names that's moved on to the semifinals, and also a big favorite over Tiafoe in the upcoming match there. It sounds to me like you're going to give me a name of somebody you like better than Fritz. It sounds like that. That's what we're going to get to here in the next match that we talk about here. But did you make this line about here? Do you feel like that Fritz should be this big of a favorite?
I do. I think that Taylor Fritz is a better player than Frances Tiafoe right now. I mean, I'll admit, though, I was expecting him to be about minus 175. So this is a whole dollar or whatever you want to call it more than I would have made it. But, I do think that he deserves to be the clear favorite in this match. Frances Tiafoe has not played the same kind of tennis, the same caliber of tennis this week at the U.S. Open. Fritz has looked like a tournament winner from everyone texting me on the grounds. It really is undeniable the way he's been playing, the way he's served, the way he's stayed composed under pressure. And I would also reference last year as well with Taylor Fritz. Last year he did lose to Novak Djokovic in the quarterfinals. That's historically been a tough matchup for him. We only saw this year in Australia was the only time that Taylor Fritz had ever taken a set off Novak Djokovic. So obviously that was going to be something that troubled Taylor Fritz. I think when you look at last year's U.S. Open, a lot to take from that, a lot of positives. He played 4 incredible matches up until the quarterfinals, and he's really been improving his play at this specific tournament. And then now you look at what he's done this week, and it's been absolutely spectacular, incredibly impressive over Alexander Zverev in a big win. So I do think he's playing better. I just think Frances Tiafoe is standing on shaky ground here, hasn't had a great season. I like the way he's playing. I like how he's playing humble and hungry, as it says on his wrist. But I ultimately do think that Taylor Fritz here has the edge.
All right. So now the quarterfinals still going on today. We have a match coming up 2:00 Eastern at Arthur Ashe Stadium. It's going to be Jack Draper. You alluded to him earlier. He's plus money today against Australia's Alex de Minaur, minus 137 there. So naturally, this is one that it seems like it's anybody's to win. What do you make of the lines here?
Yeah, and I think sometimes to a painful end, I am a sucker for an underdog, because I do watch a lot of tennis, and I believe in a lot of the players that are up and coming on tour. But I'll admit, I started off handicapping this match going with de Minaur. I thought de Minaur was going to win this match. I figured the fitness of de Minaur would ultimately cause Draper's fitness to drain here. I mean, Draper's a guy that is an incredibly tantalizing tennis talent if you watch him play. He has no weaknesses on court, absolutely none. He hits a big serve. He hits a heavy forehand. His two-handed backhand, he crushes it to all parts of the court. He's a left-hander, which makes him very hard to play inherently. And he has incredible touch at the net with lightning fast speed. And I just think, I watched this guy play a little bit on tour, a few years ago. Then I saw him debut at the U.S. Open now 3 years ago. And or maybe it was 2 years ago, whatever it was. I was incredibly impressed. He went to the 4th round. He ended up running out of steam, but he retired against Karen Khachanov with an injury. But that's really the big weakness with Jack Draper is his body. His body always breaks down, whether it's injuries. He gets gassed out there when it's hot outside. He gets incredibly drained of his energy and really goes through it. I think that is a common theme in his career, and that's what's held him back from success. But I do kind of think this is a good spot for him. Outside, I'm wearing long sleeves here. I'm in New York City. Outside, it's about 73 degrees. It's nice and cool for Jack Draper. And he hasn't dropped a set yet this tournament. So I think this is the fittest he could possibly be for this matchup against the guy who's going to make him run all around the court. And de Minaur was a guy that injured his hip back at Wimbledon in July. So I think there's plenty to worry about there with him potentially not playing a lot of matches leading up to the U.S. Open, not having the match fitness, and eventually running out of steam here against a guy that's going to make him work incredibly hard for this match. So I think Jack Draper is a name to know if you don't know him already. A guy to watch today because he plays really fun tennis, and I think he could absolutely win this match. I'm going to pick him to win against de Minaur.
All right, plus 114 there. Quickly, let's get to the night match at Arthur Ashe Stadium, 9:00 Eastern. Jannik Sinner's probably the best player left remaining on the men's side. He's minus 310. But Daniil Medvedev, he is no stranger to some of these big matches as well. Is this accurate? Do you feel like this line is right? Sinner's just an overwhelming favorite here.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, Jannik Sinner's lost 5 times all year, or maybe even 4. I mean, it's been an absolutely insane season from him. The one thing I will say is one of those guys that beat him was Daniil Medvedev at Wimbledon. I like him to cover the game spread here, honestly, in this match. I'm not quite sure I'll be as bold as to say he wins outright, but I think when you look at Australia earlier this year in the finals of the Australian Open, he found something playing a little more aggressive, played a little more aggressive on the grass at Wimbledon as well, won that match. And I do think that with his ability to get so many balls back in play, you're going to look at Jannik Sinner here, who had a hip injury, potentially career-threatening, we heard, back in May. He was feeling it in Cincinnati. He hasn't felt it yet at the U.S. Open, but he did kind of slip in the third set against Tommy Paul. I'm a little bit skeptical that maybe all the running that Medvedev makes him do, maybe he starts to feel it in the body. Maybe we get a long set. Maybe he labors through this one. So I think the game spread here is the way to go.
All right, Kenny, thanks for coming on. Great to catch up.
Yeah.
The Bostonian versus the book.
Would it make you feel better as a bettor or as a sports fan if
No.
they said after the game we were trying to cover the spread?
Oh, God. To say it out loud? Oh, my God, no.
So what,
No, to say it out loud? Oh, my God. You can't say that out loud. No, you can't do that.
Okay, so what is the big deal either way?
Oh, play the game the right way.
The Bostonian versus the book.
I feel like the first person to take a kicker in fantasy football is somebody that feels like, man, I had a really bad draft. Let me make sure I get the best kicker. That's the way I've always looked at it that way. Like, oh, I did so bad, so let me take Justin Tucker.
The key for me is, though, I make marks. Okay, this guy, I'll highlight him because I don't want 3 or 4 of these guys. I draft 3 or 4 of these guys and they all get hurt. I have no one to blame but me.
Fantasy sports today, only on SportsGrid.
When you're really, really amazing like this, people kind of take it for granted. Same with Ohtani, right? People will sort of see, oh, Ohtani did this, Ohtani did that, and it sort of, becomes normalized a little bit. But to put in context, Aaron Judge joins the 1,000 hit club, gets it done. So earlier this month, he was the fastest player to reach 300 home runs ever.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
Let's go. Welcome to the Live Golf Team Championship. The golf has been mesmerizing. They are the Live Golf Team Champions.
Team golf is back.
Oh, yes!
Are you ready?
Let's go! That's what champions do.
Welcome back to NewsWire. It looks like we could have our first pre-week 1 injury, so to speak. Atlanta Falcons tight end Kyle Pitts did not practice with the Falcons today. I know a lot of fantasy owners are not going to be happy with hearing that. We haven't even played a game yet. That's being reported by ESPN. All right, let's get to the latest in baseball. We'll touch on some football as well. Time now for some last licks. All right, folks, did you know over their last 50 games, I hate to do it to them, but the Chicago White Sox are 5-45 in their last 50 games. This is the worst team I have ever seen play Major League Baseball, and you have to go back 100 years to find a team that's worse. And to make matters worse, there's websites out there and social media posts that are just proving just how bad they are. And here's another one. You may remember Zach Greinke, who pitched in Major League Baseball for a long time. In fact, I believe this is the first year he hasn't pitched in about 20. Zach Greinke, by the way, had a .336 career slugging percentage, and the 2024 Chicago White Sox, their slugging percentage, .338 on the season. So I don't know if this is more futility or less, depending on how you look at it. By the way, Zach Greinke was not a bad hitter for a pitcher. They did away with, of course, pitchers hitting many years ago. But regardless of that, this is the most futile season I can ever remember for a Major League Baseball team. The White Sox are not only going to lose more than the 1969 Mets, they're going to go down as basically the worst modern day baseball team of all time, and they can't even draft first in the upcoming Major League Baseball draft. So futility continues there. All right, now, this next one, we're going to do it. I don't love doing it because it's not really helping anybody. It is an impressive feat, I will say that. Ben Joyce of the Los Angeles Angels threw the fastest pitch ever tracked on record yesterday, 105.5 miles an hour. And so it's a huge accomplishment. It is certainly very cool. The only thing that I would say contrary to this is that this is not helping pitchers at any level stay healthy, because glorifying this sort of stuff is only going to make youth pitchers throw harder, try and throw faster. And this leads to pitching injuries, which we've seen an extraordinary amount this season. Now, I'm not rooting for injuries here, but the harder you try and throw, the arm naturally does not progress that way. But yeah, I mean, look, I get it. 105 miles an hour, fastest ever. And that's what we're talking about. It's hot news. But the bottom line is that this is just, I don't think throwing 107 miles an hour is good for anybody's arm, and it's good for the game. It's just my opinion there. But Ben Joyce, hey, takes nothing away from him. Hopefully one day he gets paid off this. All right, now let's talk about Matlock. No, not that show from the 1980s. Not that show, no. You remember that show? Probably anybody streaming this has no idea what that is. That's fine. That right there is a picture of Scott Matlock. And by the way, that picture does not do this story justice. Scott Matlock is a fullback on the Los Angeles Chargers. That's not the story. The story is that Scott Matlock is a 300-pound fullback, 300 pounds, on the Los Angeles Chargers. And he has won the starting job. He is going to start and block for, is it Gus Edwards? I think Gus Edwards is the starting running back for the Los Angeles Chargers this season. I think J.K. Dobbins is there too. Just had a fantasy draft, so the names are in my head. So there you go, your first 300-pound fullback in the National Football League. We have reached that moment. We have 300-pound linemen all the time. And kind of fullbacks are sort of glorified linemen. But what if this guy Matlock catches a pass? Who is going to tackle this guy in the National Football League? I have no idea. Would not be me. That will do it for our show today. Thanks to Kenny Ducey for coming on the program. Also, Pat Evans from Legal Sports Report and Michael DeCourcy from Sporting News. We got a great schedule lined up for you the rest of the day here on SportsGrid. And it is the final day of the week without football, because we got football Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday this week. Kaplan and crew with previews of all of it coming up at 1 o'clock Eastern. Pharrell Coast to Coast at 3. Game time decisions at 6. In-game live prime time at 8. And Sports Rage and Gabe tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern. Also, want to thank our director, Luke, as well as our producer, Frank. And, of course, if you're watching me for the first time, I'm Craig Mish. You can follow us on social media at SportsGrid, at SportsGrid TV. And you can follow me on social media on X at Craig Mish as well. On tomorrow's show, we get you all ready for the upcoming week 1 of the National Football League season. And there's also college football to discuss Thursday, Friday, all weekend long. Some huge matchups. Folks, for those of you who have waited for college football, it's awesome. We're there. Now, for those of you who have waited for the National Football League, we are officially here too. Football season is here, folks. Get ready for it here on SportsGrid. Can't wait to preview the big game tomorrow night. Have a great day, everyone. See you then.